The new Tier 9 platoon is honestly full of surprises. I have had a blast with these vehicles. They are ridiculously fun. And today I'll be taking a look at the most fun tank of this platoon. Well, technically not tank, it is closer to a IFV. It is the VBC PT2. Now this vehicle has wheels. It goes 180 km/h, reverse 22 km/h. It has a 25mm autocannon, and the armor, well, it's the classic example of high tier vehicles having no armor, but armor isn't really a big problem. This thing has APFS DS shells, and it penetrates up to 90mm of armor, which in high tier is actually more than enough to go through most of the armors of the tier 8, tier 7 vehicles. And this thing also, as I mentioned before, is very fast, so it is a very lethal combination. It has a ridiculously high rate of fire as well. So this little thing is a monster in high tier. One of the best, if not the best, flanking vehicles that we have at the moment. It can just shred anything to pieces, and I gave this tank a nickname, the Pizza Shredder, because you know it is a Italian vehicle. Now let's see how this thing will perform. However, I would say one thing though. I'm still not a big fan of the maneuverability of the wheeled vehicles. Sometimes they don't seem to, move fast. But the maneuverability of this thing is fairly decent. It's going to get the job done. I mean, it goes 108 km/h, so that's definitely really good. Technically it can be looked at as a SPAA, but it has a PFSDS, and yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens when you open fire at something. I mean, it has such a very good rate of fire. And I have loaded a PFSDS shells, but you do have APDS as well, and you have the high explosive anti-air ammo as well. That was a M3 Bradley, by the way, just got cut to pieces. And honestly, the fact that you have a PFSDS and such high rate of fire and so much penetration and maneuverability really makes this vehicle one of the scariest vehicles in high tier. Now, of course, it has no armor. It is very vulnerable to high explosive. But if your, let's say, if your opponent or enemy is not killing you in one hit, they are dead, because by the time they reload, you will cut them to pieces with the autocannon. And I think this is probably one of the better autocannons that we have at the moment. I mean, just look what that thing does. Yeah, that thing got cut to pieces. That was a Centaur, I think. The Centaur is good, and the first vehicle of the platoon is also really good. But once I started to drive this thing, I just could not stop using it, because it is honestly a ridiculously fun little vehicle. You would be surprised by how powerful those autocannons are. It is really a very powerful vehicle for flanking. Makes me very interested to see what the future vehicles they add will be like. Now, of course, 90mm of armor means you will not be able to penetrate some of the main battle tanks from the front. From the side and from the rear, you will be able to penetrate everything, no big deal, but there are some vehicles like the T-55, T-62, some of the American main battle tanks, which do have some very good frontal armor, by the way. You will not be able to penetrate everything. from the front, but you will be penetrating everything from the side and from the rear, and of course the newer vehicles are also very vulnerable to incoming fire from this 25mm autocannon. Honestly, I kind of did not expect a PFS DS on this thing when I first used it. I expected a PDS, and I usually don't really use the SPAA vehicles because, let me be honest, I'm not really good with SPAAs, but I think this vehicle is kind of a exception to the rule because it actually is good, and it has a very nice autocannon that has penetrated a lot of armor. I mean, 25mm darts penetrates 90mm. Oh, the RIP OF. And of course, I kind of forgot that I was in the middle of enemy territory. Did get the OF, but they also got me because I forgot that. I forgot I was basically in their base. Now, the only, I guess, drawback or complaint that I kind of have is basically the maneuverability. Sometimes when you turn, the vehicle just does not want to turn. It just keeps going forward, or basically it doesn't turn the way you want it to turn. I guess you can kind of call it understeer, and this vehicle does kind of feel like it's prone to understeering, to be honest.
Our victory is near.
In this case, I would actually say it is prone to understeer. And I noticed it does that only when you are nearing like top speed, which isn't exactly a big deal. You just have to be careful not to understeer the vehicle, which you can do. You can also do the same thing with tanks. Sometimes the tank just does very fun stuff and starts to slide with no reason. Oh, what we have there? I think it's a ZTZ. I can penetrate a ZTZ from the rear and from the back. From the front, I am not so sure, since the ZTZ does have composite armor, and it's probably the best armor. There we go. Nice. That was a very nice little kill at the end there. And I see the teammate isn't happy that I got the kill. They keep shooting at me. Well, that was actually a very nice little match with the VCB. Actually, I think this is one of my first battles that I've had with it. And it's not bad, it's a good score. That's a good score. Okay, let's go to the next match. Now, this vehicle is excellent for acquiring tactical positions very early on the start, and usually you should go to tactical positions as quickly as you can. The only problem with that is when you spawn, like when the game puts you 3 minutes or 2 minutes after start, basically. That's when the problems start, because you are basically late, and in that case the tactics might not work exactly, but in most cases it actually works really well. And this is one such position where you can go to with this vehicle. Having no armor, well, should I say, having a very fast 25mm autocannon means that you will be cutting through most of the fast vehicles, and Most of the tanks that will arrive at tactical positions are fast vehicles, fast tanks, fast IFVs or SPAAs, and you will have absolutely no problems to cut through their armor, so you do have a lot of advantages over normal tanks while you are driving this vehicle. Also, the main gun is stabilized, although that's not really necessary to be mentioned since it is a autocannon and they are usually stabilized, so stability is going to be amazing. You can shoot on the move very easily. Although honestly, when I'm shooting on the move I don't really zoom in, I just zoom out, click on the button and move the camera. That way I can move the turret faster. And with this vehicle you don't really have to zoom in that much because of the very good rate of fire that you have. Oh look, a Centaur, and rip. That Centaur got torn to shreds. But I have to reload, and I'll just go back into cover when I'm reloading. The Centaur has ammo at the back, basically that's where you want to shoot it, but I like to basically put holes in the whole vehicle because it's also important to, you know, disable the crew so that the Centaur or any other vehicle can't really shoot. It does buy you some time to detonate the ammo, since you know small caliber shells tend to do less damage. Even though this is APFSDS, it is only a 25mm APFSDS, so when it penetrates it's usually not doing a lot of damage. You have to put a lot more shells into the vehicle. Sometimes though, sometimes it does detonate very easily, but usually small caliber shells tend to do, you know, less damage. So you would want to buy as much time as you can in order to basically eliminate the enemy tank with taking as less risk as possible. And in order to do that you have to basically disable the crew member of the enemy tank. Not necessarily a requirement. I mean, you can aim for the ammo right away if you like. I tend to do that very often, but with autocannons like this autocannon that I have on this thing, it is just safer to do it that way. And of course, one important thing, you have speed and you can move around the map. Flanking is, if you like flanking targets, this is the vehicle for you because you don't really have to aim. And of course the turret rotation speed, I forgot to mention that the turret rotation speed is really good, so you can orbit basically around, obviously not the term that is applicable for ground vehicles, but you can orbit around the enemy tanks with this thing quite easily. Your turret is very fast. Very few tanks have a fast rotating turret or fast oscillating turret. The OF, for example, can rotate very quickly, but very few tanks can do that, so you are usually safe. Oh look, a turret. A turret in the field just chilling on the ground. I love how the turret, sometimes the turrets stay, but the whole of the tank disappears. So look, another turret. And what do we have? We have a, yeah, that's a dangerous tank. Good thing though, they shot at me with APFSDS, and actually I forgot if they have that ammo. In any case, only the turret ring got damaged, but unfortunately the M60, as I mentioned before, American naval tank, they do have very tough armor, and I wasn't able to disable the vehicle before. Actually, I did I did get a kill though. I guess the M60 burned down. But yeah, very tough to penetrate. You have to be more accurate when aiming at those vehicles, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I had to move fast because they were looking at me, so you definitely don't want to sit still while a tank like that is looking at you, because you have no armor. So speed and agility is your primary defense on this vehicle. And let's do one more battle. Honestly, as I mentioned on the start, this is a very nice platoon. It's also one of the first platoons that doesn't have exactly a tank in that definition of a tank. I know the first vehicle of the platoon can technically be categorized as a light tank, but it is a IFV, not exactly a tank, but you know, it kind of does work like a light tank. So overall, a very interesting platoon, which does have some very interesting tanks as well. Not tanks, but IFVs, and if I do call them a tank, well, my apologies. Vehicle would be the more accurate, I guess. IFV is the more accurate term for these new vehicles that we have received in the new Tier 9 platoon. And makes me very curious to see what... Oh, let's say CM25, that's dangerous. Will be fun to see what the next Tier 9 tanks will be. Good thing is I have artillery for the CM25, so the cardboard box is about to fill the mighty artillery. You know, while I mentioned that this tank doesn't have a lot of armor, well, this IFV doesn't have a lot of armor, it is surprisingly durable. Sometimes it does take a while for the enemy to destroy your vehicle, but again, the most effective way to destroy the new Tier 9 tanks is to use high explosive. Now I know the Centauro, for example, the Centauro has extra added kinetic protection. That's basically what these boxes, or not boxes, but plates that it has attached to it. It helps against ATGs, but it also helps against kinetic projectiles. So the Centauro, while it does have no armor, the Centauro is surprisingly durable. And you can actually bounce that with APFSDS. But high explosive is basically, in most cases, a one-shot kill. Has to be a larger caliber high explosive shell. For example, 90, 95, 105mm will basically one-shot the Centauro quite easily. So don't be surprised if your APFSDS shell doesn't kill it in one hit. The Centauro does have some interesting kinetic protection. And the good thing with this vehicle, you don't have to use the machine gun, you just can't use the main gun, and you can shoot down bombers with that easily. Although for bombers I think the other ammo type would be nice. I know I'm using only APFSDS shell on this thing because I like APFSDS, but if you want to have some anti-air capabilities, you can definitely use the high explosive ammo. It is pretty decent, but I personally primarily use APFSDS because I primarily use this vehicle for anti-tank purposes. Well, anti-tank, anti-ground vehicle, I guess. Since technically... Oh look, at least 62, and yeah, you can easily penetrate the rear of the turret. And the crew has been destroyed, I mean knocked out. So you can penetrate the more heavily armored vehicles, but only from the side and from the rear. Avoid fighting them directly head on, you can fight the less armored vehicles head on quite easily. You know, I'm very curious, is there like, I mean, they have to do something like that in the future, right? A autocannon with 150mm APFSDS penetration and the same rate of fire that we have on this thing. I think that's going to be really wild, and I'm kind of excited to see how the next updates will look regarding the tanks, because I think it's gonna be there has to be some fun vehicles coming up. Something that's probably going to be a bit more fun than this. Well, we will see, but for now, this is definitely one of the most fun vehicles that you can get on this platoon, and in the game in general. I would say this thing is awesome. I like it, and I think we are about to win the match. Yep, I think the enemy team ran out of tanks. I think they did. Yeah. Yep, they did. Oh well, that was fun. So that would be it for this IFV. Honestly, it is a very, very fun vehicle. Probably going to be one of my favorites actually. And if you like something fast with a good rate of fire and good penetration, then definitely give this vehicle a go, because it's definitely worth it. And well, with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. If you would like to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. And with that being said, stay safe. And as always, I'll see you next time.